everybody? This is Scott, your host from Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast. Right next to me is Teddy, and below us is our guest tonight. He's been in WWF from 1996-97. His nickname, The Pug. Welcome to the show, Alex Pourteau. I hope I got that name right.
Pourteau.
Sorry, I goofed up already, man. Sorry, man. So, how you doing tonight, man? Thank you for taking the time out, coming on the show, and sharing your stories. I appreciate you, and I appreciate Teddy coming on as well. So, and again, I asked this question to everybody. Watching wrestling as a fan growing up, what was that like for you?
Well, I grew up in Louisiana, so I was watching Mid-South. You know, guys like Wrestling 2, and DiBiase, Duggan, Matt Bourne, Magnum, Rock and Roll, Midnight Express. So, you know, I was right there in front of the best talent ever in the world. And when I say ever, including today's guys, nobody can outwork any of those guys today.
Yeah. So in the Mid-South then. So in your opinion, things have changed considerably since the time you've been in the business till now.
I'm sorry, say again?
So in your opinion, since you've been in the business to now, things have changed considerably as far as the work process and the quality of talent.
Oh, absolutely. Look at today's product. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Exactly. I mean, I think the biggest thing missing from today is the territory days, the storylines, and all this other stuff that used to be back in the day that's not here right now. So
yeah,
I do agree with that.
To say the least.
Yeah.
So Alex, you would say more today's, like the old school used to be smash mouth wrestling. You know, if you hit somebody with a clothesline, Stan Hansen hit somebody with a clothesline, they were done. So you would say this more modern, is more of a spot fest?
Well, I wouldn't say they were done. I mean, you know, you could take it and get up and keep working. But, I mean, there was nothing wrong with being snug back then. You know, today, if you're snug, these kids start crying and whimpering in the back. And that just leads to a bigger ass whooping because you're selling it in the back. You know, kids today, the problem is they're not trained anywhere appropriate. And the good schools that they go to, even the guys that know how to work don't even smarten them up because they want to keep them around and keep that paycheck rolling in.
Now, would you say the locker room scene back then, was there more respect for legends back in the day than there is now?
Absolutely.
And that's, you would say it's pretty important to listen to the legends in the back. I mean, you were a rookie once, and you had the legends in the back. How important was that for you to listen to those guys, and how much did they impress you to follow their lead?
Well, they taught me how to work. You know, today these guys everybody's working with everybody that's green. You don't get any better. You know, when I was a junior or senior in high school, I was working with guys that knew how to work. Iceman, Kevin and Kerry, Chris Adams, Al Perez, Jimmy Jack Funk. You know, these guys knew how to work. They'd already been working 10, 15 years. So, you know, that's how you learn how to work, is working with quality workers. There's no more quality workers out there anymore.
Right. And then you had to go through.
So when you were in Texas, that's when you were your beach bully back then? I
started in World Class in 87, 88. A beach bully, after I went to Puerto Rico for 2 years, I came back to Texas, and that's when Global took over. And then Michael Hayes and Bill Irwin put the beach bully thing on me there. That was for the ESPN TV.
Because if I'm not mistaken, you've had several names: the Beach Bully, Custom Made Crippler, Heartbreak Apollo, and then your last one, the Pug.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, I tagged with Frankie Lancaster out in Puerto Rico for a few years. I took over Wendell Cooley's spot out there as a Heartbreakers, and we had a pretty good run out there. We worked with a lot of great tag teams on the island out there. Then the Beach Bully was in Dallas in 93, 94. And then I got my tryout for WWE in 96 and became the Pug.
So I've talked to you multiple times at your Wrestling 2.0. I've always meant to ask you, where did you come up with the name Pug?
I did it. WWE did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So back in the day, even with your training, the first place you trained, am I right? It was a horse stable.
Yep, it sure was. It was a horse stable on Barksdale Air Force Base, and none of those guys knew how to work. They just had a ring in the middle of the stable, and everybody was just doing hip tosses and arm drags and drop kicks, and we were just playing around like today's guys do. And I took a videotape down to Jim Starr, which is one of the original mask medics, the interns, and he said, "All that looks good, but you got to know where to put it in the place. You need to call a high spot with it. And I didn't even know what that was, and that's I trained on that little horse stable probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 weeks, and we ran a little show there in Louisiana. And that was the tape that I took down there and showed it to him, and I was proud of it. I thought, like everybody thinks today, I knew how to work, but little did I know that I did not. And I trained with him in the back of this gym for probably, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks, and then I knew how to wrestle.
So in training, there's more than just wrestling moves, right? They taught you how to do the mic skills and all the stuff like that. That's important, and probably the not the politics, but just how to be a wrestler, other than just the moves.
Well, he was a very old school guy, more of just psychology. How to have the people, where you need them, where to do what, when to do it, when not to do it. More of timing is a key word to the wrestling business. So, yeah, that's what today's kids are missing is timing. When they hear the people coming up, they sit in the hold. They don't come up with the people. And then that's the time to come up and run a nice hope spot. And these guys, they shut them right back down way too early. And they don't elaborate on stuff like that, and they just don't know any better. But that's what you get for not going to the right place.
Yeah, true. So, Teddy, would you say there's a lot of people in the independents today that don't go to the right place for training, and like our guest Alex is talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw Alex have a post probably a couple months ago that to look the part. And when you go to these independent shows and you see a heavyweight champion that looks like he should be selling popcorn, your heavyweight champion should be in 121 pounds. I remember growing
up.
And
he owns the company.
Yeah, and he owns the company. I remember going to like the AWA shows in Atlantic City, and the first match I personally remember watching was Bob Backlund versus Sergeant Slaughter. And when you see larger than life, Sergeant Slaughter was larger than life. Bob Backlund, to this day, I'm still friends with him, and he still does 500 squats, standing squats. And it's amazing. Like, they were larger than life athletes. And that's what the wrestling company is missing now.
Yeah, real athletes, not gamers coming in with non-athletic skills. They're on the high school bowling team, that now they want to be a wrestler just because they can pay somebody $350 a month. And then when you ask them to go to a show to set up and tear down, nobody shows up. A bunch of freaking idiots.
Yeah, it's just pretty bad when half the talent doesn't even know how to set up the cross beams or which way they should go. And it kills me when they don't even know the length of the board. Like, come on, like, I'm a referee and I'm the first one at the show and I'm the last one at the show. Like, because at the end of the day, yes, I'm the referee, but it's my heart, it's my passion that goes into that every day. And like, I take the bumps. Like, I do referee bumps. I'm good with that. But then I mean, So if the referee knows more than some of the talent, that's probably an issue.
Right.
Yeah, that's yeah, I'd say so.
So brotherhood and paying your dues is pretty huge in the wrestling business. And I think from what you're saying, back in the day, it was more of a proud thing to do. It had to be brotherhood and paying it forward, like paying the dues, like setting up the ring, and I have all the support compared to today. Would you agree?
Well, sure. I mean, like when I started in Dallas in World Class, I mean, that ring was always set up. It stayed set up, um, and that was a pretty well organized promotion. So I didn't have to do too much in there. And to be honest with you, I was only in the independents for probably, I don't know, maybe 3 months before Akbar put me in to World Class. So, I didn't do much with the independents I was full time in the business for 10 years, 16 to 26 years old. And when I got out of the WWF in 97, I did some stuff in Puerto Rico, and then I started doing some independents again. So I'd never really been around the indies, and the indies I was around early in my career were guys that were really trying to make it. Were these guys? It wasn't none of these guys today where they work at Johnny's tow truck driver, and they're wrestlers on Fridays and Saturday nights, and they don't go any further than 25 miles. These guys were humping it. They were driving 250 miles to work with guys that knew how to work, to trying to learn how to to network and shake the right hands, and get a position later on down the road when the office changed hands and stuff. So these kids today, I tell you, they don't even hardly leave the house, unless they're doing something extra for NWA or AEW, or Sean brings in some guys for NXT, then they'll do something. But other than that, man, there's just no motivation in these kids anymore, and there's no genuine athletes anymore. There really isn't.
Speaking of Akbar, he one of the most underrated managers, I believe, of all times. You don't hear enough of him. Do you have an opinion on why he's not in the Hall of Fame yet?
Well, Akbar definitely is probably up there with Heenan and Cornette. Absolutely, probably. I would almost say above both of them. Really, Jimmy Hart, of course. But Akbar, he made such a great living in the South. He bought his home in Dallas, Texas, in like 1969, and he made a ton of money right there in that area, and he didn't really have to go anywhere. And most guys went other places because they either didn't save their money or they were just trying to make more money. Akbar was very smart with his money, and he didn't have to go anywhere. So he made a great living right there in World Class. And Bill Watts, of course, in the Mid-South.
Yeah, I've been a big Akbar fan for a long time.
So what's your interactions like with Jim Cornette? He gets a lot of flack about being a jackass or whatever you might want to call him. What was your interactions with him? What was that like with you and him?
Jim Cornette and I are very, very close. He inspired me from day one to get into the wrestling business. I skipped my freshman football practice one day and went and had pizza with Jim Cornette. He was 23 years old, and I was, I don't know, maybe 16 or so, 15. And, Jim Cornette's always been very good to me, and everything he says is gold. Today's guys really don't belong in the business. The ones that disagree with him are the ones that don't belong in the wrestling business.
Right. Do you think he gets that flack because that he's just that truthful and no one likes that? So is that right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's today's world, right? Everybody has their own truth. Why listen to the people that know? It's like all these guys, just because they're on Instagram and Facebook, now all of a sudden they're John Cena next week. I mean, they don't need to be anything until the office calls them. They're already something. You know, you can't tell me anything. I've been doing this for 6 months. These guys don't know dick.
Right. No, absolutely. 100%. I love Jim Cornette. He speaks the truth. And I think that's that's what no one likes is he speaks the truth. He speaks facts. So.
Well, speaking of John Cena, I like to bounce. You were part of John Cena's army, weren't you?
I sure was. That was a Mania 25. I think that was in Houston.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And you also said when you got out in '97, you wrestled a little bit in Puerto Rico. Yeah, July 7th, 2020, 2001. You won the television title.
Puerto Rico.
And then
I'm sorry. Say again.
Or for Wrestling Council, you won the title July 7th, right?
And
then you lost it. Okay.
Ricky Santana, and then I dropped it. I dropped it to Ray Gonzalez.
Ray Gonzalez. Okay. Yeah.
Puerto Rico is where you met your wife, correct?
I met my wife in 1991 in East La Verde. Yep. We'll be married 30 years, October 21st. 3 kids.
Congratulations. 32 years here for my wife and I. So.
Good. Nothing like waking up next to a Puerto Rican all your life.
I don't know.
I'm about to wake up for the rest of my life with a Jamaican. So
nothing like Island girl.
Yeah.
So Jim Starr was the guy that trained you after the horse stable stuff training, and you guys built a great relationships. And would you say he launched you into your WWF career? How is your relationship with him today?
Jim's doing fine. He just sold his gym in Louisiana. You know, we've always been real close ever since. You know, once he trained me, you know, we just always had a great relationship. I stop in Louisiana, you know, maybe twice a year. I'm in Florida now, but I stop by and say hello to him every single time I'm there. Very grateful for what he did for me. You know, it's just very rare to have been trained by somebody that really, really knows the wrestling business. You know, like I said, there's a lot of guys that know the business today. But even if you're in their school, they're very hesitant to smart you up, you know, because you're going to take off and go work, you know, and the money stops coming in. So, you know, these guys, I mean, I ran 2.0 for 7 years in a commercial facility. I know how it is. I mean, we turned athletes. I wasn't concerned about making money, to be honest with you, more so than putting guys out on the road. I mean, we put a lot of kids out on the road. We've had some kids go into WWE for tryouts. You know, some of them had got a referee spot out of it. You know, some of them were told just to keep working. Your work's fantastic. Now a lot of them are over Booker T's, you know, trying to make a name. I got a couple of great kids out in California doing the Japan dojo. We sent them to OVW, and they killed it there for a year and a half, and now they're out in Cali. So, you know, we try to put the right ones on the road, you know. I never sheltered anybody. Some of these kids around here, they've been working in these schools and these independents for 10, 12 years. I mean, I'd never heard of such a thing in my life. I don't understand it. There's no desire to get to the top anymore. There's no desire to get to the next best promotion, to work with the next best worker, to get the next best payoff, to get the next best position. I don't understand it. These kids are just content working 30 miles from the house in a skating rink and coming home and just working in a 9-to-5 job Monday through Friday. I don't get it. They don't belong in the business. I don't understand. And that's the problem with the business. This is why the WWE quit pulling from the independents. Now they've gone out and they're going to get these quality athletes that are something in college now. So these kids that have a head on their shoulders that aren't trying to make stupid stuff go viral, you know, and they don't have bad habits. And they moved into Orlando. So, hey, here's $1,000 a week. You got 30 days to get settled in. And, you know, some of them get, you know, more than that. You know, some of these top stars, these like javelin throwers and you know, shot put guys, track runners, they'll give them $50,000, you know, because they got to put some money on them. But, and that, you know, they're pulling quality athletes like that. They're not pulling any gamers, you know, these kids today. they work like they think they're Kevin Owens. They think they do everything they see on TV, and so they look like everything everybody's already seen without muscles. And I these kids don't go to the gym anymore. I don't understand the wrestling business today. I really have a hard time watching it.
So in case you didn't hear, we got some fans that out there watching this. Pro Wrestling 2.0. Check them out on YouTube. They got 40K followers, a bunch of videos. If you want to check out Alex Pug's school, check it out. A lot of videos. I'm looking through it. A lot of videos, a lot of reels. Check them out. It sounds like the real deal, man.
So, Alex, how many students have you put out that made it? Because I know the couple shows I've been to, just to name drop someone, Shane Strickland was there, Sammy Callahan, Santana Garrett, Terrence and Terrell Hughes, the Dudleys, Sue Young. Oh my God! Like just the clip, that group of talent can run a pay-per-view.
Yeah, we put out a lot of good stuff. If you'll go to Pro Wrestling 2.0 on YouTube and subscribe, you'll just get a ton of great matches of when these kids were coming up. You know, like I said, Dudley's, Tetsa Blanchard, Chelsea Green, Callahan. You know, as soon as Callahan was, he was the very first talent to ever ask for his release in NXT. Of course, he's a great worker. You know, and he was our first 2.0 heavyweight champion. And we've just had a slew of talent come through. You know, Orlando is now the capital of pro wrestling world, you know, with NXT and everything. So we had access to all these guys, you know, and we utilized them. And, you know, we probably put, I don't know, maybe out of probably 100 students we put through 7 years, I would say 10 of them went on to really do something, to get on the road, and are currently holding titles or positions for, you know, companies that I would say are above and beyond the average independents.
So is there one guy?
When I say that, I mean like MLW, you know, OVW, Reality Wrestling, you know, Japan Dojo, places where they're going to get recognized and stand out, where the office is looking at people. You know, it's not Johnny's Wrestling in Brunswick, Georgia. You know, there's some promoter just has a ring that don't know dick. He's a real estate agent, and all of a sudden he buys a ring and brings in all these wrestlers. I told my kids, stay away from that stuff. If these kids don't know how to work, don't smarten them up. Go to the next, keep climbing the ladder. Okay. That's what I tell my kids.
So if you had to name drop anybody out of your school, who's one of the better ones that we should look out for here in the future?
A kid named Eli Knight.
Eli Knight?
Yeah, he's with Culture Inc. Eli Knight is probably my top student out of all of them. As a matter of fact, you know, I started him when he was 16 years old. Okay. And this is 2016. So it's very rare to find a wrestling school that will take you under 18, just for insurance purposes. But I was confident in the way that I trained, and he's a natural athlete. So, but Eli Knight is fantastic. Janiyah Kai is one of our female athletes. I think she's holding the women's title for MLW right now. She's a fantastic athlete. Mikey Spandex he's a great kid. He's an Orlando guy. He was refereeing with NXT for quite a while. I believe that he I think he's gone back to school counseling now. I know he recently got married, and, you know, he's trying to build a home life, which I can certainly understand. He never had any intentions of being a referee. He's a fantastic, great little worker, you know, in the ring, and looks like a great worker. At the time, they just said, hey, we got a referee spot for you. Would you like to take it? And he took it, you know, and he ran with it for a year and a half or so. And there's several other guys that we've done some stuff with, you know, but those are my breakout students.
Awesome, man. So now, are you the only trainer there? Do you bring in some big guys to help you train your students, or?
Yeah, well, we've utilized a lot of the talent in the area. Shank Strickland, Sammy Callahan, Buddy Murphy helped out a lot, quite a bit. Mecca Wolf, 450 is what he went by. We've had a lot. Darby Allen was helping the kids for a while, back before AEW started. We had Josh Woods helped out a lot with the kids. We've done a ton of seminars. Tommy N, Too Cold Scorpio. We've done, Serena D. We probably had, I don't know, 15 or so seminars with, TJ Wilson. I only brought in the guys that knew what they were doing. I think the youngest one that I brought in was Lindsay Dorado, which was, I forgot what his name was on WWE 205 Live. And he's a fantastic worker too. He really is. Moves like a cat. Hardly even bumps. He takes very good care of his body. But we just, Tessa Blanchard had a seminar, but we had a lot of great leadership. Chelsea Green was one of our ladies coaches. She's doing very well right now. So we utilized a lot of great talent right here in Orlando to help our kids. And that was huge, Yeah.
So 2.0 would be around for a while, huh?
Yeah, we started in 2016. I actually closed the commercial facility just probably a year ago. We had a lot of kids that meant well and they wanted to come in and wrestle, but they weren't wrestlers. These guys, first thing I asked was, what's your age and athletic background? I'm 35. I've never done anything. I played softball. Okay, well, you're 35. It takes you 7 years to really learn this business. You're going to be banged up at 42. You need a 10-year run. You're too late, kid, We had a few that come in at 16, 18, and 20, that could do some stuff. But I would ask these guys, and say, hey, there's a show, it wasn't even 2.0 show. I'd say, hey, there's a show Friday, 20 miles from here. Let's go over there. Let's be there at 6 o'clock, help set up, tear down, whatever they may need. Let's just go to support the show. Nobody would show up. So I'd see him on Tuesday. I'd say, hey, I was there Friday. Where were you guys at? Oh, blah, 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 blah. I said, get your gear and get the hell out of here. I don't need you. You take your $350 a month and go somewhere else. I'm not going to put my name on you. This is not play wrestling. So I was letting guys go just for no show and shows that I would ask them to go help support the setup. Right. I ran them all off. I don't have time for that. You can go to these schools they'll teach you how to do a few things in 6 or 8 weeks for $3,000. And they're great workers, but they don't teach you anything that's relevant to the business, only moves. And they mark out on these guys, but whatever. I don't need that. They make a quick 15 grand every 6 or 8 weeks. That's not my deal. That was just never us.
Yeah. Okay. Teddy?
I've been to Alex's shows. Like I said, I used to go all the time when I moved from Colorado into Orlando. Well, probably one of the best independent shows that I've ever been to. Well ran, always professional. Every show I've ever been to, it's always been a blast. So.
Awesome.
I think I was talking to you before we went on air. The first show I went to was probably one of your first shows, and I forget who didn't show up. And like Jay Lethal changed one of his travel itineraries just to come help you out.
Yeah,
and that shows.
I forgot who it was. We'd advertised a special guest referee that night for the Dudleys and not the Dudleys, but TNT, which is Devon's sons, which are great kids, by the way. I forgot who they were working with, but I think Jay had brought over a couple of girl students from Tampa that night, and I slipped him right in for that spot for the special guest referee. I remember he had to call his agent and ask him. I forgot who he was with at the time, but they gave him the okay, and we put him on. So we had a great roster for forever. And we built a lot of great kids. We really did. I really enjoyed it. I think one of the drawbacks of these kids today is they get what they can and then they just take off. There's no more loyalty anymore. They just get what they can and take off, and they just go to the next guy and burn them and keep going, like whenever I was brought up, after I made it in world class and came back and worked in Dallas, and lived in Dallas, I would go down to Akbar school and coach his kids, on a couple nights a week, and just to return the favor out of the goodness of his heart for what he'd done for me. These kids today, you just don't see a return in them. They'll stop following you. It's just weird. I don't get it. I just, it doesn't bother me. I mean, I've had my career. It's just, and they wonder why they don't get a break, but they're know-it-alls, and so, yeah, and I hope I don't come across very harsh about the business. It's just a shame. It's like Jody Hamilton said, the business has been trashed, and it really has. Everybody's a wrestler now, so it means nothing to say that you're a pro wrestler. I mean, everybody's a wrestler, even if you don't look like one. So
yeah, I was once told by one of the older wrestlers that I look up to, Damian Wayne. He said it became a time when it was a fraternity, like the boys were the boys, and now it's like you said, for $500 and a pair of Nikes and basketball shorts, people think they're professional wrestlers.
sure.
And it's not the same. It's not the same anymore. Like the old school mentality will always be the right way in my heart.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Old school, all the way from, Teddy's from Extreme Impact Wrestling and XIW in Panama City. Herb Simmons up in St. Louis with SICW and SCW up there. Old school. They try to keep the old school mentality going with the shows the way they do it and stuff like that. So I agree. I love old school. Even back in the '90s when that was wrestling. That to me that was wrestling. Even the managers back in the day, like Fuji, Cornette, they all got involved and they all had a part. Now we have, and I'm not saying nothing bad about the managers today, but back in the day, there was everybody had their place, and they all put on a great show. And I've seen stuff from the Samoans. I just watched the video where that stuff is crazy. But you guys were back. It was different, right? It was a whole lot different.
Well, guys knew their position on the card. If you had an opening match, you went 5 minutes, you didn't go outside the ring. Now, if you tell these guys, you got the opening match, if there's nobody in the back to give them any structure, they'll go out there and go 15 minutes and throw every finish out there. And now they blew the whole crowd. So there's nothing left to see. So there's no card structure that, you work according to where you're at on the card. These kids want to have a WrestleMania match, all 12 matches on the card, all 6 or whatever they're running, and it means absolutely nothing. And they don't care. They just don't, they're very selfish, and it just, they didn't do that. They didn't do that on 2.0. I guarantee you that. But, they had the right structure behind the curtains too. And guys, Callahan, Chelsea Green, Strickland, Leo Rush, these top stars that come in, they knew how to work. I didn't have to tell them anything, and that's that you get what you pay for, right? I mean, you bring in talent that knows how to work, the less you got to communicate with them. Sammy, Leo, you guys are on. You got the main event tonight. Give me 20 minutes. You got it, Pourteau. That's all I had to tell them. See?
Now, doesn't that come to passion compared to doing it just to do it? That just shows those guys you just mentioned had the passion for the business. And these other guys that are in the indies today have just, let's go out and make $50.
Well, it's not only passion; they know how to work.
Yeah. But to know how to work, you have to have the passion to do it. Correct? I mean, you better be you better be in line. You better want to do it, or you're never gonna.
Well, there's a lot of kids that have passion that don't know how to work.
Okay. Right.
And and a lot of times it's it's because they're not athletes to begin with. It's very hard to break in kids that have not been around any athleticism, any coaching, any weightlifting. These kids come in and they've done nothing. And so, as opposed to guys like Shane Strickland or Leo Rush or Sammy Callahan, these guys are natural workers. Yes, they all started somewhere, but they had a lot more motivation and drive behind them. These kids today, if they hit the ropes and do a hip toss and do a drop kick and an arm drag, they're ready for WrestleMania. They just think that's all they need to know. It's just these kids, I tell you, and the back talk that they give you, that was just another thing, that was, I didn't get that out of the real stars that came in, because they understood, with someone who's been there and someone who's given them a platform to perform on, but anyway, I mean, and we always teach our kids, hey, you might be working for a mark promoter that doesn't know anything. He's the one that says, hey, you guys got 5 minutes. You just put it together, because he doesn't know anything. Okay. And then you got a few guys that have some, that have some structure that'll give you a decent laid out finish because they know how to work. But most promoters are just guys with money, but yeah, back to a lot of great kids with passion. But it's timing. You can have passion, but if you're coming in at 35 and you're 385 pounds, it's tough. I mean, there's only one Rikishi. There's only one. What's the guy's name in NXT now? The big guy.
Oh, Buffemi.
Otis.
Oh, Otis.
There's only
yeah,
one.
Yeah, Otis.
I mean, so I mean, you just have to, and don't get me wrong, you have to work with what you've got in a lot of ways, but it's not for everyone, and people don't understand that. That just don't get it, I mean, and I would tell my guys, hey, if Hunter walks in here tonight, who would he pick? Based on what you look like, what you know in the ring, and what your mic skills are, who would he send to NXT if he walked in here right now? If he sent Steven Rigo down here or Norman Smiley to grab some talent, who would he pick? A lot of them wouldn't even raise their hands because they knew they weren't ready, which I can understand that, but that, that's the confidence level. That's the difference between guys that are ready and guys that aren't. I know that Eli Knight would have raised his hand. Mikey Spandex would have raised his hand. Because they've got confidence. They look like the part. They're not shy. They've been around athletes. They've been around coaches, so they're not intimidated. Anyway, I hope this helps you guys out a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was always told there's always a place. Just because you have the passion for the business doesn't mean it needs to be in the ring. We need security guards. We need ring through stuff like that.
Yeah, and we get a lot of kids that just can't get it down. And I'll tell them, hey, have you considered being a referee? I can get you booked almost anywhere on these shows. I mean, you get to work with a lot of great talent. You get to learn finishes, and a lot of these kids would take that wrong. No, I'm gonna wrestle. I'm gonna wrestle. Yeah, but you're the shit. You're not picking it up. I'm sorry.
That happened to me, sir. Like, yeah. I didn't get offended. I came out of the military. I was like, okay, at 40 years old, I went to wrestling school, and I was like, I know I'm too old to do anything. I want to learn how to do something in the wrestling business, be it a referee, something. I know I don't want to wrestle. I know I'm too old, but I want to contribute something. And I got trained to be a referee. I went in there knowing that wrestling was not going to be it.
Yeah.
So I went in there. I studied. I've been a big referee fan anyway. Nick Patrick, Tommy Young, love him. So I went in there with that knowledge. But if you go in there with the mindset that you might not wrestle, it makes it easier.
Well, sure it does, but nobody wants to do that. It's just like I would tell these kids that were almost getting ready to, I'd get ready to launch them. I'd say, hey, let's put a hood on you, so if you mess up, nobody knows who you are. And then when you learn how to work, then you take the hood off. Well, they got offended. Oh, I'm not doing that. I've never wanted to wear a mask, and it's not because we want you to wear a mask. We're trying to protect you. You can't be the medic for 3 matches until you get this down, and then pull your hood off and be, whatever you want to be, but again, that's just today's kids,
I mean, some of the greatest wrestlers wore hoods. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Mark Calloway wore a hood down in Texas, Dallas, right?
Yeah.
When he was
Texas Red.
Yeah, and he also went by like the Punisher or something with the black mask.
Yeah.
Yep. So
but, Mark Calloway listened to guys like Gary Hart and Akbar that knew the business. He listened to Fritz Von Erich when they brought him in. They had respect for people in the office. A lot of these kids don't respect. A lot of these kids don't respect these kids in the office today because they've never been anywhere. And now all of a sudden they're a booker. You're a booker and you run a show once a month in your hometown. You're not a booker. You ain't done nothing, brother. How are you a booker? You've never been in the ring. You've never done a finish. You've never been on TV. How are you a booker? You're not a booker. And most of the people that came out of 2.0 knew how to work in 6 months better than guys who've been working 10 years because they were never trained right.
Sure.
So, that was another issue, because they were around somebody been in the business 6 years, but were never trained right. So the promoter would say, hey, whatever he wants to do, let him do it. Well, you know how that goes. So anyway, I was very hesitant where my guys worked. I always make sure I try to put them with quality promoters that knew what they were doing, which there's a handful in Florida. There's a bunch of them that don't know what they're doing, which is fine with me. I steer them the other way anyway. But, experience is experience. If you know how to work, you can make something out of nothing, but everybody wants to get their stuff in. And then you trust these guys, and they try to do all this stuff in the back. They call everything in the back. And when they get in the ring, they can't get it over. They can't do it. It sounds good in the locker room, but you really can't do it in the ring. So why are you calling it in the back? If you can't do it in the locker rooms where you tell somebody, that's how you blow spots up. That's how you lose trust with guys. That's how you get cut off and get shot on.
Wow. So do you ever send anybody to CCW down in the Orlando area?
Say again?
Do you ever send anybody to CCW, Coastal Championship Wrestling?
Yes, we've sent a few guys down there. Rockstar 7. We sent a good kid from Chile. We also sent Ramona Luchador. I can't think of her name right now. She's a Chile girl. And also we sent gosh, I can't think of his name. We've sent them a few people, yeah. And I'm good friends with Cha Cha Charlie, and he's a good athlete there, and he helps out a lot in the office. So if I've got somebody who wants to come in, or a referee, or somebody needs to get some experience, I'll contact Cha Cha, or
great guy.
Yeah, good. He's good people.
Yeah, he's been on the podcast. He's a great kid. Great.
Yeah.
I met him at the River City WrestleCon this last year. So great guy.
Yeah.
So tell us about your GWF interactions. You had some interaction with Buff Bagwell, 123 Kid. How was that experience in your career? Can you talk briefly about that?
Well, I came there in 1992, right after I left Puerto Rico, and Buff and Kid were already gone. They had gone. They had left. My stuff was mainly with Chaz, Stephen Dane, Booker, and Stevie Ray as Harlem Heat. I'm sorry. I'm trying to think of what their name was. Ebony Experience. And then Ivan Putski's son Scott did a lot of stuff with him. Chaz Taylor, of course. Those were the guys that were there when I got there. Jimmy Jack Funk had come in a little bit. Sam Houston was there. That was a great locker room. It really was. I mean, we had TV every Friday night, and we ran spot shows, a few times a month. So Texas was really, really good. And, but you can't go wrong with Texas. There's a lot of great workers out there now too. And there's some good schools in Texas too, for sure. Dustin's got his program out there. Athena, I can't think of her name in AEW.
Amber Moon.
Yes. Yeah. She's a great worker. Her husband's a good worker. I can't think of his name right now, but they do some stuff for that MX or MPW, MXW. I don't know what an MPW or whatever, but and then Moonshine Mantell, he's another one of those guys that stands out in Texas. There's some great workers out there. Christy James, she's a great worker out there. Really enjoy watching her stuff. Texas is really they still invest in Miranda Gordy's out there. She's a great hand, and her boyfriend Craig Kasem. You book those guys, their gear looks good, their bodies look good. They know how to cut a promo if you need a promo for the show. They know what they're doing out there, and there's a lot of good kids in Florida too. There really are, but I think the wrestling business has been saturated. Like I said, anybody can be a wrestler now, and I'm good friends with Steve Kern, and Steve Kern, he got out of the business mainly because he just he would bring these guys up and show them what to do, and all of a sudden they'd be in NXT, and then 6 months later they were cut and didn't know what to do, and Steve was like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore, because when they leave NXT, you got the indies, and there's no money on the indies, and people don't understand that. There's absolutely no money in the indies. I don't care how you cut it, unless you find a mark that's got $3 or $4 grand, or finds a bought show, which is very occasionally now, or a rare occasion. Independence is experience. Everybody talks about a hot dog and a handshake. Man, I did a bunch of those. When I was in Texas in 1987, and Iceman and Chris Adams were running shows, brother, I invested 100 miles and little or no payoff to work with guys that knew how to work, because I was learning how to work. That was better to me than a payoff. Yeah. These kids today are more concerned about a payoff than they are learning how to work. They've got it backwards. And if you've got any kind of a character that's over somewhat, of course, everybody thinks they're over now. You can make more money off of merchandise, off of pictures, if you get yourself over right. You can make more off of merchandise than you can payoffs. That's what the baby faces made a great living in Tennessee back in the days. Just with gimmicks. Those guys were up and down the road 1,000 miles a week for $500, $600, $800 a week, which was okay money, but gasoline and eating and hotels and the gym, taxes. That, you know, at the end of the day, it's 800 a week, 1,000 a week's not a lot of money when you're on the road. You know.
I have one last question about your career. I know I want to keep it within. We got 7 more minutes. I want to keep within your time frame.
Yeah.
So your pug, and you have the gear, the United States of America gear. Would you say you were the inspiration for bringing Kurt Angle in as the Olympic champion?
Yes. Yes, I was.
And now, is that okay with you? Were you all right with that move? I mean,
absolutely. You know, Kurt, I can't touch Kurt, you know. Listen, it was an honor for me to be there. You know, to me, even though I did 7 tours in Japan, I did 2 years in Puerto Rico, I was on ESPN TV for 2 years. I genuinely never felt like I made it in the business until I signed the WWE contract. And that's just me. You know, I'm in every encyclopedia there is out there right now, all over the world. WWE put me on the map. You know, I did a lot before I got there. Those weren't the best matches I ever had, by all means. You know, it was my greatest exposure with the greatest platform and the best promotion ever to walk the face of the earth. Nothing will ever touch the WWE. I don't care how much money somebody else has or how many other bookers come in and try to do what they can do. You'll never touch the WWE. That's just all there's to it. You know, now, I mean, they've been around over 100 years. I mean, come on, you know, Vince Sr., you know, they've just got real bookers, you know, I mean, they've got guys that know what they're doing in there. But yeah, Kurt Angle, I think definitely they said, hey, you know, Pug, you know, I was brought in basically just to put guys over on Monday Night Raw. And then on Superstars the next night, they would give us guys to go over on. So they, you know, we'd do the favor on Monday, and then Tuesday they'd pay it, they'd give it back to us. So, you know, it was, you know, I didn't know what kind of spot it was when I got there. But, you know, there's no regrets. I love being there. It was really good. I wish it would have turned out to be more. I think that a lot of people realized that I was a better worker than probably what they gave me credit for. You know, Jim Cornette talks a lot about, you know, if they would have just, you know, utilized me in the right spot, you know, would have gotten over a lot better. But I got no hard feelings there. You know, I worked with a lot of top guys there. You know, I worked with Bradshaw in the Garden. I worked with Hunter, Vader, you know, the Godwins. I worked with, you know, Owen Hart, Davey Boy. I worked with Jim Neidhart in Miami. I worked with Smoking Guns. I worked with Phil LaFawn, Leif Cassidy. I worked with Doug Furness. You know, those, brother, please. Who's worked with those guys? Come on now. You know,
you're right. You're not wrong. You're not wrong, man. You know,
so,
and that's why when I do the podcast, you know, I can say I've had several guys on this podcast. And my friend that comes on, another guy that comes on, and he says to me, he goes, you know, just given the opportunity to talk to stars on the thing is worth more than anything they could ever get, right? Because we get to talk to you as an athlete, as a star of WWE when we watched you as we were growing up. So I say that to say thank you.
Sure.
I say that to say thank you for agreeing to come on here. There was some not disagreements, but communication lost by my part. But I thank you for not saying bye. You said, yes, I'll do it. And so I want to say thank you before we close the show. And I want to give you the opportunity now to plug whatever you want to plug if you need to, or I can just close the show. It's up to you, man.
I think we put it all on the table already. So I appreciate you guys having me. It's been a wonderful night. You know, go to Pro Wrestling 2.0 on any of the social media. Like I said, we've got, you know, 40,000 plus followers on YouTube. We've got a lot of great content on there, over 500 matches. And out of all that product, I've never been on there once. I had my time. and just go on there and click on there and enjoy all those matches. And there's a lot of great stuff in there to watch how the kids have evolved. Some were great workers there and that are still great workers. And I use that term very loosely. There's only a handful of those. But you can just, if you need to learn how to work, watch YouTube. Watch people that know how to do it. Yes, it's great to be in a fantastic school and be in the ring and doing it. But, watch guys that know what they're doing. Watch how they sell. Watch how they do their comebacks. Watch how most guys have 3 or 4 big moves and they implement them differently in every match. It's not hard. These kids today just act like it's so tough. You got to find what works for you.
Right.
So lots of great content on there. Anyway, I'm so happy to have been on with you guys tonight, and hopefully we cross the road again sometimes.
Absolutely. So, Huge Pop Wrestling fans, thank you for joining the Huge Pop Wrestling podcast. Thank you, Teddy, for joining on. Pug, I appreciate you. Appreciate you sharing your stories. I'm going to play a quick exit. Don't go anywhere. I want to say thank you and off air. So, Huge Pop Wrestling's for life.
All my dogs, make some noise up in this house. Who is in the house? Who is in the house? It's the gangster of destruction, so you know what's going down. And when the drive-by's coming, then you better hit the grind. Cause when your body hits the canvas, then your head is knocked out. Who is in the house? Who is in the house?